I'm really pleased to be here because this is the second annual Learning Abroad, and I work with 7,161 students who are learning abroad. And I've been working with international students since 1974. And yes, I was 12 years old when I started. But it has given me a chance to reflect a little bit on what I've learned. And so when they asked me to say a few words for the Learning Abroad conference, I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun just to kind of put together my top 10 list of some of the things that I've learned. And what I'm going to say is in no particular order at all, but just some random things that I've learned over many years. But I want to start with some conceptual ways to think about this, and there's a concept of internationalization at home. And that is that if Brett is magnificently successful and he sends 40-50% of our students abroad, that means 60 or 50% of the students won't go abroad. And how can we create international experiences here by friendship with international students? And that's a big part of campus internationalization. And that's one piece of a much larger, comprehensive way to look at how we internationalize the campus. And as I'm looking at this, I try to look at it from multiple points of view. It's not just, I work with students, so I get drawn into student stories, and I love student stories. They're so interesting, and everybody has a great story. You have a great story too. All of you have gone abroad and what it was meant to change your life. But I think Inga wanted me to kind of shift it towards the perspective of an institution, and maybe in terms of what do we do for society? How's the world changing with more and more people coming abroad? So without further ado, number one. As we look at international students, there's a lot of different ways to view them. There's lots of different metaphors. And my favorite as an educator is that they are ways to connect us to the world. We can learn from them. They're a valuable educational resource. We should really see them that way. But there's a lot of other ways to see them. Think of the number of foreign leaders who have been educated in the United States. They go abroad. Presidents of Mexico, the Philippines, Jordan, are just a few. The influence that we have in spreading democratic values, making friends in the world, telling our story, all these types of things are really important parts of the United States' place in the world. Well, you can call it soft power, you can call it smart power, you can call it a lot of different kinds of things, but it's certainly not military power. Students with special needs. You read the literature on international students, and many of them are English as their second language, and so it does take more time to work with international students. That's part of the price of admission. If you're going to have international students here, and if we're really going to internationalize the campus, we embrace this, but everybody has to kind of know it if they're going to take their top academic talent. We've got people in some of the scientific fields that some of these departments would really curl up and wither away if we didn't have the kind of outstanding academic talent in some of these departments. Now we get practical. Economic exports. The Open Doors report that came out this year shows that international students, their contribution to the community of Greater Lansing is about $245 million. And it's over $800 million to the state of Michigan. So this is a business. International exchange is a business. And I think about it in terms of human change and cultural change and personal change and a lot of other things. But at the end of the day, as an administrator, Brett is a businessman. And then, unfortunately so, the issues of terrorism and international exchange and mobility of people, you can't help what happened in 9/11 was a culmination of a lot of years of other kind of incidents. So it wasn't just that one, but some people will see international students as a risk to national security, and that shifts the work that we do in my office from an adjustment-based, helping people from other societies know us, be successful here, achieve their goals here, to compliance with accountability to the U.S. government and the Department of Homeland Security. So it's there. I heard this phrase from Joe Mestenhauser years ago. Joe Mestenhauser is one of the leading thinkers in international exchange. He said, international people spend too much time talking with each other. And if we're really going to be successful, we need to reach out. Because who comes to international programs? It's the same people. It's the people who already believe in this stuff, and they are already engaged, and that's great. Then we reinforce what we like, and we're glad that they're there. But how can we help other people who haven't been as fortunate to engage? And how can we use difference as a resource? And I think this becomes a really important opportunity for us to think about strategically. We've got this amazing resource on campus, and we're underachieving. We're underachieving in how they can teach us the other ways of the world, seeing new ideas, getting that aha moment that you've never thought about before. Friendship with an international student can be transformational, and this should be one of the things that we're trying to do. Global, it's my new favorite word. I heard it about maybe 18 months ago. Merging the global and the local. Because just because you've gone abroad and you've changed and you've grown doesn't mean you're not still a product of where you came from and local, and you're always a product of that, and that's a good thing. You're kind of grounded with that. But as you grow and get a global perspective, and it can be a struggle sometimes to come back and fit in back to where you were, but you got to love the East Lansing High School football team if you're from East Lansing, or wherever you're from, you're still local as you go global. And I think that's really cool as we're trying to actually globalize the community. How do you globalize a community? You globalize a community by having signage in the streets, by having an airport that has translations, by having a number of other things that make people from other places feel welcome here. They can resonate with things. And that's a good thing. Student of mine, when I was at another university, we had a very active speakers bureau. His name was Morampi Oliranki. He was a Maasai from Kenya. And he was doing his doctoral dissertation, and he went out to a third grade class in a rural school about 10 miles outside town. And they heard he was going to do his doctoral dissertation work back in Kenya, and so they, as a school, bought 20 soccer balls for him to take back to his village. What a really neat thing to do. So then, when he came back, he brought back thank you notes from all these students. This was 1987. The relationship between that school in Kenya and that school in Springfield, Oregon exists to this day. So you never really know what kind of connectedness, when you have people from other countries doing things, it can be this kind of thing. And so a third grade class in Springfield, Oregon gets this kind of connection with Kenya they never would have had. And so you just keep doing what you're doing because it's the right thing to do, and you have so many idealistic opportunities to transform people's lives. What are the paradigms of today? I worry today's paradigm is a little bit cynical, because what we're seeing with this massive uptick in the number of international students over the last couple of years is economic development, innovation. They're trying to attract talent. They want talented people. You've got the Global Talent Retention Initiative here in Michigan trying to keep smart people. And why do you want smart people? It's because they're the keys to innovation. And international students study in technical fields at a rate of about 40%. And the U.S. students, it's about 13% of a U.S. student study in technical fields, science, technology, engineering, and math. So that's kind of today's paradigm. It's a business model. They want talented people. They want smart people here. Nobody's really talking in the bygone era of nation building, brain drain, getting talented people back to their countries. We want them here. That's what's going on in the United States, and it was started. My computer. It was started by Britain and Australia in 1989. So you look back historically at different chapters in the history of when international students started coming to our country in big waves. And post-war years, the United States had a dominant position in the world, and a lot of money was given to graduate students to come to the United States because we had the best higher education system in the world. They wanted to learn from us. We are the hosts, they're the guests. A lot changed in 1973 when the oil embargo changed and got us thinking about that we weren't necessarily the dominant country in the world, and we should really be thinking about how can we learn about others. Why are they doing this to us? And you can actually look at this, turns lemon into lemonade a little bit, but if we gives us a chance to learn about other cultures, that's actually a good thing. And that was kind of the paradigm, this mutual learning model. A lot of U.S. State Department money was given to create programs to connect people. 1989, the end of the Cold War, Tiananmen Square happened in China, a lot of other things changed in the world, and the need for that mutual learning model shifted abruptly with the end of the Cold War. So with that in mind, what was the next kind of paradigm? Well, Britain and Australia were just competing like crazy for smart people, and that's what really got the competition started in a lot of ways, competing for brain power, education as a business. And that was what was going on in 2001 when you know what happened. And so all of a sudden the paradigm became these people are risks, they're threats to national security. So today's paradigm is back to somewhat of a business model, but there's a practical dimension of running the business of higher education. And international students are all these benefits, cultural, financial, and every which way. We're really fortunate that they're here. International education is still new. Okay, and you can say that Marco Polo went abroad and Columbus went abroad, but in terms of human history, we're really new at bringing people together across the world. The airplane is just 100 years old in terms of bringing people in mass numbers across the world, and we're just beginning this. And I would like to suggest that culture is every bit a frontier. Every bit a frontier, no different than what Magellan faced and Captain Cook faced, and as they went around the world and trying to understand how does culture wire us? How do we see the world fundamentally different than each other? And how much do we really know about that as cultures come together and we have bumps, and if it was easy, smart people would have figured this out by now. And what I would like to suggest is this is a frontier and this is an embryonic industry still. So the profile of people graduating today is that they'll either work abroad or work with somebody from abroad during most of their career. So we want to develop globally competent people with the knowledge and the skills and the attitudes and everything else that's going to go on like this. The cost to us, if we don't have globally competent people, is opportunities that are lost. We really don't even know what we don't know. So with that in mind, we really want people who are connected and know and in the loop and can make things happen in really good kinds of ways. You can't learn this stuff through a book. Experiential learning really needs to be more recognized, and higher education gives credits for book learning and classes taken, and you get a degree after you've got 120 credits. And so at this point, we need to kind of recognize study abroad is experiential education. It's really important, and I think it needs to be much more centralized to the life of the university. So who would be the Michael Jordan of study abroad in terms of incentivizing it, getting people excited about it, Pele of study abroad, things like that. We are seeing history in the last couple of years. And look at these numbers of what, this is just MSU's numbers. And I could give you Ohio State's numbers and Purdue's numbers and Illinois' numbers and some of these others. This is not business as usual. And so with that in mind, what kind of adjustments should we make to accommodate a very different demographic to make sure they have a rich U.S. experience, to see what we can do with this, and how does it work together, where both sides need to collapse a little. And I think we need to be thinking very thoughtfully about that. With this number of international students coming in here, I think the faculty need to be thinking about how do we teach international students? What's different? That first year experience, they're going from oftentimes a passive educational system to an active educational system. How does all that work? And I think MSU needs to go really deep and be thinking much more. And I would say this is all of U.S. higher education needs to be thinking about how do you teach the multicultural classroom? How do you teach students from abroad? I've thought about this a lot because I don't speak Chinese. I spend some time in China every year. I don't speak Japanese. I spend a fair amount of time in Japan. I'm a generalist. But we work with people from 130 countries, and I've been working with people from all over the world for a very long time. And I think because of the nature of our work, I have as broad a view of the world as anybody you'll know because of the experiences and my interests and other kinds of things like that. And I think this needs to be recognized and rewarded. And typically society recognizes and rewards specialists. And I think the synthetic type of thinking that comes with this broad way is something that really needs to be much more valued in higher education. And then in customer services in a global context. I tell our staff all the time, people won't always remember what you did, but they'll remember how they made you feel. And I think we need to spend more time and work with them as we go forward. I really like to make the comparison of mountain climbing. And when you study abroad, you planned it, somebody's helped you there, you get abroad, and then what happens when you come down? And I'm going to conclude by reading a poem from René Daumal, who's a French poet and mountain climber. And this really kind of sums up coming down off the mountain. You cannot stay on the summit forever. You have to come down again. So why bother in the first place? What is above knows what is below, but what is below does not know what is above. One climbs, one sees, one descends, one sees no longer, but one has seen. There is an art of conducting oneself in the lower regions by the memory of what one saw higher up. And what one can no longer see, one can at least know. And that strikes me as what learning abroad does for you. So, thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Gabe.